industry. I didn't see much of that. I don't know if we are going to today, but I hope that we also include these kinds of industries in the whole discussion because it's quite important. Yes. We are so focused on the smallholder farmers, but what happens to processing their raw material?
Yes.
So let's see what happens today.
Okay, very important. Thank you very much for your contribution. And Madam, we can't skip you. We can't skip you. The tiger didn't catch you, but at least the tail got you.
Thank you. Yesterday, I also learned a lot. I didn't know that there was so much technology about Agric. So I learned a lot. What I always ask is, if all these things are there, why don't we have food flooded on the markets at very cheap prices? Why is food still expensive? So I'm hoping that by today I'll be able to know maybe why things are a bit expensive. Because I think a lot of people spend a lot of their salaries on food, which shouldn't be if we have technology to make it cheaper.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Pobi Hayford.
I'm Teresa from Women in Agric. I think the wing was taken out of my cell by the previous lady. I've seen so much since yesterday about production. I don't know whether because I'm with the value addition unit, that's why I have that problem. Wherever I go, I always say that when you talk agriculture, it is all about production. After production, what next? Last time we were saying that we had so much maize, we had so much planting, they were going to Burkina, they were going here and there. After the planting season, what's next? What do we do? I didn't see anything on the technology in value addition to the agricultural production. If we go that way, I don't think we can sustain whatever we want to do. So please consider the value addition aspects of the production of our crops in this to complete the chain.
Maybe we need to have another workshop where we'll be bringing the value addition, the researchers, the technical people together, and let's see how best we can, move agriculture forward.
My name is Elom.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I'm Richmond Elom Agbosu, Technical Director of PREPIS. Over the years, we've had a lot of discussion. I mean, the actors in the tech space in agriculture. And what we've been calling for is leadership. So I'm very happy this is coming, leadership is coming. The policy identified one of the key things to be leadership. So now if we can have the leadership committed and providing the enabling environment for the agri-tech to flourish in the country, I think we'll move in the right direction. And also, there are a lot of technology in the agriculture, e-agri space, and what we should be looking at now is partnership, because that is what is driving the world now. We have to partner and make sure we take advantage of the data Isoko is collecting, what PREPIS is doing, what Digisoft is doing, what Farmerline is doing, so that we will not be repeating and going to the farmers all the time to collect the same variable when we can take advantage of the data, the advantage of partnership to advance our cause. Thank you.
And by the way, are we sharing our details with each other? Are we networking? Please, partnership. Okay, partnerships. Very, very important.
For me, this has been a big learning event, and Donald wants trouble. Next time, don't be singing those inni, mini, minor mo. CCC is what we should be singing. And domesticating and being, culturally, our children are right now alienated from all our nursery rhymes and things. So I hope that our technologies will be looking at them. So for me, this has been a big learning event. I have learned a lot, learning more on ICTs. And all the things that I think everybody has shared has really resonated with me. One of the things, I think it was somebody from the agribusiness chamber yesterday said something about, because when I was also listening to the policy, the strategic framework, my question was just what Thomas asked about, after MAG has ended, what next? And how do we sustain this? And I think somebody from the agribusiness chamber talked about fintech or something. Was it gift tech? It was gift tech, okay. So I was like, I know you, the players who work in this sector, I don't know what advocacy you're doing to sustain ICTs, because I'm worried that, for example, when the project ends, we talked about things that will sustain it in the strategic framework, like tablets, computers, the infrastructure. Are we positioned as a country to have funding that will sustain this, not only in the sector, but in other sectors where this is also needed? Was something that was running through my mind throughout. Yeah, so I hope that all these suggestions that have come up are being taken on board and will be discussed at a higher policy level in the ministry going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this gentleman in the green, you had your hand up.
Thank you. My name is Joe. I'm with the Fisheries Commission. Yesterday we had a number of great presentations, and I think one thing that I picked up was that there's a lot of waste in the system, but then with the bringing on board of technology, we're hoping to reduce some of this waste and then increase efficiency, and we'll be able to integrate other sectors into the agricultural sector. But like the lady from Isoko said, there's not much we're not seeing much in the value chain. And if we're bringing on technology, we can only assess it best at the end of the value chain when the end user receives the product. Because he can put in a lot to increase efficiency in production, but then if it gets to the end user and the end user is not satisfied, then it means that you have failed. So I think that probably in the future we can bring on board those who are at the end of the value chain for them to make their inputs.
Okay, thank you. Anyone here on this side who wants to contribute? Okay. Thank you for your discussions, your contributions. I hope the Secretariat have captured all people's comments and concerns. And the next step on our agenda is the panel discussion. And I think all the stuff that we just talked about right now will be talked more into details. And on this note, I want to invite the following people to please come up forward and sit at the high table. They are Francis Cranchi, Acting Director, E-Agric Center. Is Francis in the house? Thank you. Please come up. Round of applause. Then Benjamin Fiafo, Director, Farm Radio. Then we have Alima Bawa, Cow Tribe. Then we have Michael Wilson, CSIR, Institute for Scientific and Technological Information. Now, of course, we have Nana Kofi Annan, ICT Advisor, MOFA. And last but not the least, Richmond Agozo, Peace. Thank you. Have I captured everybody who have to be on the high table panel? Is that a complete list? Cow Tribe is yet to come up. And Gerhard Mensa, Communications Advisor, National. Round of applause. I think he's going to steer these affairs of this panel discussion. Good morning, thank you. We'll do our usual protocols. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Donald. Welcome to this morning's panel discussion, where we intend to take a deeper look at the issue of digitalization in agriculture, particularly in the post-COVID era. The intention is to look at how far we have come, what impact has e-agric or has technology or has ICT had on agriculture so far, what has been some of the achievements, what has been the challenges, and how we can move forward. The panelists for this session have been introduced to you already, and so mine is to facilitate a process where together we can have a conversation on the issue of e-agriculture. I will start with a rather controversial question, and any of you who is moved by the Spirit can choose to respond to it. Do you really believe that ICT can be a game changer in agriculture in Ghana? Do you believe? The Spirit is moving. We are waiting for it to settle.
So,
we'll see. Okay, go ahead.
Since I have the microphone,
Okay.
I think the Spirit is in the microphone. So, do I believe that ICT can change? It's a game changer in the field. I would say a big yes. And as the accounts will say, it's a quadriquasio bema wotuma bisanidin. So let's look at what ICT has done in different fields. There is an exponential growth when it comes to computing, and it is for no reason for when it comes to ICT, and it is for no reason why I think Professor Alote advised our country some years back, may he so rest in peace, about we investing into ICT. Around the same time, Ghana, Korea, India were hovering around the same GDP, and Nkrumah was at that time even donating to the Republic of Korea, South Korea. They pushed much of their resources into ICT in different fields, and as we speak now, the charts are clear. Looking at fields like the medical field, genome sequencing took billions of dollars to sequence the first genome. As it stands now with the power of ICT, we are doing that. It took about 13 years to do the first one. Now we are doing it in under 24 hours at just the cost of almost $200. So with what ICT has done in different fields, I think it has proven itself worth as a game changer in many fields. And I believe if we apply that same to agriculture, it is going to be a game changer.
So wherever the Spirit lands next, whilst you're responding to your belief in ICT as a game changer, can you also add whether we in Ghana, as a government, as a ministry, is putting our money where our mouth is? Because ICT being a game changer is not in contention. Are we preparing to harness the benefits in ICT in agriculture in Ghana? Over to you.
Thank you very much. And I will say that straight away, no, because just some few months ago, last month, HEFA International had an internationally recognized research that was done across Africa. And when they look into how the youth are using ICT in the various African countries, Ghana was the lowest. So it shows that in Ghana, we are not making the effort to ensure that the youth who are currently needed in the area of agriculture begin to utilize ICT in agriculture. When we look at the necessary investment, I would say that until recently when we had the series of hackathons, that is when we begin to identify people who have all this wonderful talent, who have all these wonderful ideas, and it is through these hackathons that they were identified. I believe that there's a lot that our government can do to open the way to enable the youth who have all these great ideas to begin to explore and introduce them to enhance our culture. Thank you.
So I think that with all the technologies we continue to talk about and how we want them to make agriculture more efficient, they are entirely not replacing the human workforce. It is still the human beings that are needed to implement these technologies and ensure that the maximum benefit are gotten. As a country, as a ministry, as a department, for me, I think that we really haven't given the right attention that agriculture needs, or that the various departments need to be able to be more efficient enough and to make farming more attractive. If you go to the district level and see an agri department office, I wouldn't want to work there. That is because we really haven't prioritized them. We feel they are just farmers, or the officers are supposed to be in the farm and not in the office. And so even their sitting environment is not motivating enough for them to want to work there. If you look at our schools, enrollment continues to dwindle. How many people want to go to the agri colleges? How many people want to go into the veterinary schools? So someday they would come and help these farmers. That is because the working conditions are quite poor. Third is the fact that we really haven't defined our problems sincerely and also defining our solution to respond to that problem. We're talking about a technology. Our funding is from another partner. Of course, there is no way we can work without leveraging on partnerships. But we do not have to 100% depend on an external funding before we can have a critical service like implementing technology to enhance food production. We need to prioritize that. I can tell you that even the right tools like computers to even connect to this open source we have been battling about yesterday, I'm sure you guys don't have, right? So we really haven't prioritized the agri sector, right from the problem to the right tools that we're looking at to solving them.
Okay, so looking at the use of technology in agriculture and whether we have prioritized it, I think it is not necessarily a problem for the agriculture sector alone. It cuts across many organizations and, for that matter, sector when it comes to adoption of technology within the ICT space. Our problem is that the cost of purchasing these technologies are high, and we seem to find it difficult to do the actual calculation to identify the return on investment when we are investing into this technology. And so you go to the ministries and other places, it's like, how can we spend this much into this? For example, you can, like the drone we saw yesterday, just one object and it's over $15,000. And you may need a number of them to be able to achieve what you want to. And it's like, we are not able to connect the return on investment for purchasing that and the kind of work it will do and the benefit we'll get out of it. So I think one of the issues is for us to begin to appreciate the contribution of technology in our workspace and how it helps us to achieve more within a short time and how it helps us to cut down even on costs in the long term. When some of these things are well explained and we get to understand it, focusing our attention on these technologies will not be much of a problem at the moment. And what we need to also understand is that for most of the organizations that we have, ICT is now coming in. We did not have IT department before. It's not that these things have come into it, so we are trying to get along with it. And so the priority, yes, it is true, we haven't given it that, but we need to now do that, else we will lag behind and the cost will be so much for us. So if we look at the National Cybersecurity Act, which was passed somewhere last year, the Agriculture Center has been identified as part of the critical national information infrastructure. What that means is that it is a sector that if we should have any problem within that space in terms of information, the country will come to a halt. Now, so if that has been identified in the National Cybersecurity Act, then it is for us as a sector now to be more serious about how we handle our information and how we do our things, leveraging on ICT and ensure that that space is well secured, it's well connected to the internet, it's well connected to the ICT space so that we are able to effectively disseminate information and connect to the world. Yeah.
Francis, clearly ICT, critical.
Yes, thank you
can make an impact.
Yes, thank you very much.
In terms of prioritization, we seem not to be there yet. I want to move on a little bit. What about the attraction that agriculture holds for, call it, the ICT savvy? I'm asking because the majority of our farmers probably are still illiterate, probably find it difficult to handle devices. How are we going to break through that? How are we working towards breaking through that? Because we can invest in all the infrastructure, invest in all the devices, but if you have farmers who would not come near a tablet, who will not come near the devices on which ICT are deployed, how can ICT make the impact that is required on farm practices and production?
Yes, thank you very much and good morning. Yes, I think they've said a lot. I mean, the previous speakers have said a lot. But what I would say is that we need to kind of Africanize some of the things that we do. All the things that we see from the West are good, but how can we translate it to the illiterate within the sector that we are working in? As you rightly said, the illiteracy rate within the sector is high. So how can we, as a nation, this is not a sector affair, it is a national affair. So as a country, how are we going to make this kind of very simple and explanatory enough for a layperson to understand? When it comes to agriculture, somebody might think it's about food, but I will say it is about information. We are into information business. So how can you kind of package the information that will be attractive to the farmer so that the farmer will be able to use this information to solve problems and also to take decision? And this decision boils down to productivity, efficiency, and profitability. How are we going to do all this? As I rightly indicated in the beginning, we need to Africanize whatever we see the West does. For instance, when we see somebody in the West using computer, it does not mean that we need to give computer to our farmers. A simple phone can do same. So it's about sensitization, it's about doing the simple thing so that we'll be able to harness the potential that ICT brings.
Okay, I want to come back to Nana Kofi. Take us through what the concept of e-agriculture is all about and how our concept responds to some of the challenges that we see in the sector.
Okay, so the concept of e-agriculture, as I tried to explain it yesterday, spans through basic technologies to sophisticated technologies in terms of ICT and their application in agriculture. Now, if we take the Western world, the e-agriculture started with the big agricultural industries where they deployed sophisticated machines that had AI capability to help them in their farming. Now, that is where it started from for most of the industrial countries. Then ITU through UN came in and they scaled it down. And then the boom of mobile technology came and started making everything within the ICT space simple and portable and easy to go with. And so mobile devices, mobile apps started coming. And so the sophisticated systems that were running on huge servers now could run on mobile phone. So if that is the case, then how do the developing countries take advantage of the scale down of these technologies for us to also pick up with the developed countries? Now, so in our space, when we talk about e-agriculture, we are not looking at the big things. We are looking at the simple technologies that we can leverage on to use in our farming. So if you take a simple mobile phone, that is a feature phone. When we say feature phone, phones that do not have sophisticated functionalities, how can a farmer use that to connect to, let's say, essential services? With that, we have what we call the IVRs. When you have an IVR with your e-agriculture center, with that phone, you can just call in and get information, essential information that will help you to do your farming and that. Within that space, we can also look at sophisticated systems like the satellite that will help us in early warning systems. Now, that is critical because the early warning system provides a certain information about disaster and how the weather systems will be in a certain duration so that it helps us to also prepare our farming and everything. So as much as that we are looking at simple and easy to use technology, that one will look at it from the individual perspective, the individual farmer purchasing simple tools and technologies, whilst other partners within the agriculture value chain with certain financial muscle going for sophisticated systems with government providing the enabling environment. So the market woman at the market who used to travel 1 week, 2 weeks to go to the farm, to go and get the product from the farmers and transport it to Accra or Kumasi, can now sit wherever she finds herself and on a platform, either on the mobile phone, communicate to the farmer, make a request, identify all the produce that she wants, and the farmer also gets it packaged and transported to her. Now, this alone cut down risks of traveling. It also cut down traffic movement. Now, this alone improves our economy. If we want to go down very well to look at the value chain of using ICT, because if you minimize movement, traffic movement, you are minimizing the time you spend moving up and down and that. So that is key. When you minimize the risk of traveling, you are putting your human resources in a position that their lifespan can be extended, because we know that road accident takes a lot of life. So
we know all these advantages that ICT come with.
Yes.
But we also know that there are farmers who even cannot use a feature phone.
Yes.
And in order to fully bring ICT to bear on agriculture, you don't need feature phones, you need smartphones. Are we thinking about a process of orienting farmers to be more comfortable with the use of such devices?
Yes, so with that, we have what we call the adult education model of teaching the farmers. So as we start the actual implementation, some of these models will be adopted, where the adult education model helps the farmers to quickly learn new things and are able to use it. We also use the knowledgeable people around them, their children, and people who have knowledge in some of these things to also facilitate their learning. So with this model, we believe that over a period of time, we'll get these farmers appreciating and being able to use some of these technologies. Thank you.
Benjamin, you are in the business of information dissemination and by implication also information gathering. Since we started this journey of introducing digitalization into agriculture, what is your take on the kind of impact that we are making?
Thank you very much. I will say that, yes, we have made a lot of impact. One is that we have been able to identify the various ways we will solve our problems that we have currently with the use of digital tools. When it comes to the issue of soil, now we have very simple soil testing equipment. When it comes to the checking of maize, the moisture in maize, we have very simple technologies that are in our country that are available to farmers that they can just dip into the maize and be able to tell the moisture content before they sell. Weather information, we have it in various ways. I believe the point-to-point weather information is there. And the various ones that you can just dial a number and you receive weather information for your area are all available, and some of them are even free of charge to the farmers. When it comes to how the farmers are using it, one of the studies that had been conducted on several ICTs shows that there is no one ICT that can provide all the solution. It's rather a combination. So you can see most of them are using the voice in addition to text and then the visuals. So when it comes to weather information, some add the visual to the voice so that a simple look at the picture, you'll be able to tell what the symbol, that particular symbol means. So the ICT environment is learning and at the same time introducing new ways of doing the various things that are very difficult for our farmers. I believe that the idea of combining different ICTs for our farmers is the way out now. Thank you.
Alima, so clearly there are very discernible innovation and best practice that ICT is coming up with. But is it making impact on our farmers? Is it having an impact on productivity? Is it impacting on livelihoods?
I think the solutions have so far that I have seen are pretty much user-centric, taking into consideration their ability to be able to use it to the max. But in terms of the result is another thing. How do we collect feedback from these farmers? For example, receiving voice messages from a platform is easy. You know, you can just put a robocall, a blast, and then they receive it. But how are we able to get the feedback from them as to how their farms are doing? Do we have the human resource to be able to follow up on every individual farmer's farm to be able to see what they are using the information for? Obviously, many of them are making good use of this information. They are seeing high yields. They are able to get connected to centers. But how are we able to collect that and make sense of it and say at the end of the day, this has been the return on investment like Dr. was mentioning? I think the reverse, collection of information is one thing we need to put more effort in.
Michael, you work with CSIR, and so on this panel, I see you as part of government. What do you think you should be doing as government in order to ensure that ICT is able to deliver the value that we all expect?
Okay, so I can
Francis,
hear
I'm
giggling
coming to
everywhere.
you.
So
from Michael, I'm coming to you, Francis.
So let me put it this way. So we are all talking about there is more that can be done. The question I always ask is, what have we done with what we have had so far? So CSIR has been set up for over 60 years. A lot of research works have been done. People keep asking, what have been the output of these research works? I usually liken this situation, and I said this somewhere, that I see the CSIR and the government research institutions as like an entrepreneur who sets up a bakery. And then he employs people, he pays their salaries, and every day he keeps telling the employers that I do not have flour for you to bake. But they constantly receive salaries. Now, these salaries are coming from citizens, taxpayers' money. Citizens have like startups, industry, they are all part of those who pay the salaries of CSIR staff. And the CSIR is expecting that you have demands and you are bringing your research demands to the CSIR, so we work on your research demands. However, both citizens and government seem not to have or seem not to be giving CSIR any user or industry-driven research works. So we end up going to some foreign partner, writing a proposal to them, and they're giving us the flour, which is the work that we are supposed to do. Now, when the output comes out as research publications, algorithms in people's publications, the expectation is that when the bread is ready, the consumers will come for the bread and consume that bread so they grow healthy. However, I hardly find people coming to the CSIR to pick up the research output and convert them into usable solutions.
Is that not a wrong expectation that you have a product and you sit back and expect people to come forward?
When I land, we will get... Exactly. So what has the CSIR done? So we say, okay, since the people are not coming to us, let us put it out there for them to pick it up. So portals are developed where all CSR technologies are blasted out there. Of course, not in detail because we have to protect some part of the information. And say this, that, and that are available.
You're talking of portals on websites?
Yes.
For the farmers to access the information on the portals?
Not the farmers necessarily. So yesterday I picked a card from the drone, those who brought out the drones. So there's a whole thematic mapping division that is developing thematic maps. However, we are going to Netherlands. So the expectation is that why will this industry not come to the CSR and benefit from what is already existing? The research scientist who worked on that has moved on to the next research work and is waiting for you to come. So I think we've not maximized what we have, and we are not maximizing it. So someone raised the synergy thing. And I think until we form that tripartite relationship between government, research, and industry, it is going to be very difficult for us. There are a lot of wastages in the system. In 2017, CSR decided to take a step further, where now we are beginning to convert our own research into solutions and trying to operationalize these solutions. It is the wrong approach because the research scientist operationalizing the marketplace app I presented yesterday is bound to fail. That research scientist is being promoted based on number of publications he publishes in a year, and not based on how many produce were sold on Kwafu Marketplace app. So I think Farmer Line, last 2 years, we worked on the Carnivalator mobile app with IITA, and that was handed over to Farmer Line, and Farmer Line is operationalizing. And I believe all these portals, if we take this route, we will have a lot of benefits from what is existing. Thank you.
Francis, I hear your message about Africanizing ICT. Yes. What should government do with that?
Yes, thank you very much. When you come to Ghana, every year we read budgets and we indicate the various mandates that the ministries have. So what we can do to sustain what we have is that we need to operationalize some of the things that we will develop. For instance, when you come to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, we have several directorates, and they have their specific mandates, and they normally develop, or they will develop information systems to help them execute some of these mandates. So in order for us not to reinvent the wheel that we normally have in the sector, for instance, whenever there is any project-led deliverables, and immediately after the project, everything just comes to a halt. In order for us to overcome this, what we have to do is to operationalize some of these things so that they become our operational activities, so that when there's a time for us to budget for our activity, we can equally budget for some of these things so that they can, in effect, help us execute whatever we are supposed to do. So these are some of the things that I'm talking about. For instance, when you look at internet, it will baffles your mind how it came about. It was just a project for the US Army. And immediately after the intervention, the country adopted it because it is helping. So in this case, we shouldn't see some of these things as waste of money. When you go to the West, they subsidize the agriculture. So if Ghana government is ready to kind of implement some of these interventions, it is in right direction, but we should be able to kind of sustain whatever deliverables that we will come about. Thank you.
But we are also subsidizing our agriculture. There is subsidy on fertilizer and some farm inputs, aren't we?
Yes, when you look at the quantum of US budget that goes into subsidy, and you relate it to what goes into Ghana's subsidy vis-a-vis the fertilizer, I don't think we can compare these two.
All right. Ben and Alima, clearly there's some advocacy work that has to be done. And this brings into question what are civil society organizations doing when it comes to the issues that exist within the agri sector. What are you also thinking about when it comes to the farmer? Because clearly the introduction of ICT or the deepening of ICT in agriculture would have some implications for the farmer in terms of cost. So what are the thoughts that are going around, and what are you doing with advocacy on these issues?
Thank you very much. In the area of advocacy, we believe we, as the CSOs, we cannot do this alone. We need to work directly with the directorates. So as part of, for example, Farm Radio International, we are working with the Directorate of Agriculture Extension, working with all the other actors within the digital space to come out with the extension strategy, the e-extension strategy that will help sell the digital ideas to all. Not that the Directorate will develop its own digital tools, but begin to serve as a point of service for all the digital tools that are available that will be user-friendly to the farmers in the various communities. The areas that we are looking at together is how affordable are these digital tools? How user-friendly are they? Is it possible for them to interconnect with each other? We are also looking at whether they require internet access for them to work. We are looking at all these things so that whatever is being developed, whatever is being deployed, from the point of the developer will be user-friendly to our farmers. So we are looking at all this in collaboration with all the actors within the space, so that at the end of the day, we'll ensure that the farmer is served with the right tool and not just any junk that will just work for some few days, and that is the end. And I believe the advocacy begins with the idea that when we think about modernizing agriculture, we will not go strictly back to the same way of doing things, but looking at the digital tools that can enhance the work that the human beings are already on the field doing. Thank you very much.
Alima, same question for you.
Okay, so I think he's spoken a lot about the usability of the technologies we're talking about. The other aspect I want to talk about is, there has been a campaign in Ghana where we say eat what we produce, or where Ghana eat Ghana. So I think it's about time we consume the talent that we are producing in Ghana. It's not just about the food. It is also about the talent. See, Farmer Line, Trotro Tractor, Digisoft, and the rest of us in here are exporting our solutions to other countries. Meanwhile, in Ghana, they have not been fully utilized. How can we ensure that all these young talents, all these Agritech that we have in this room and outside of this room, we can put them together and tap into some bits of their solutions? Of course, no single solution that each of these Agritech companies are providing can solve the entire agri program we are looking at. But can we tap into some of them, connect with them through APIs, have partnerships with them? We don't see them as competitors. Can we consume the talent we are producing and limit the exportation of these talents at a time that we haven't actually saturated the market or reaped the full benefit? The second one is about prioritizing and having a sustainability plan. Until we have a sustainability plan and say this is the time we want to be able to be sustainable and fund all our agri projects at least 80 to 90% and have just about 10% coming from external sources, of course we can't do without partnerships both within and external. But we need to have a clear funding plan where we say that in the next 10 to 20 years, we need to be sustainable such that just about 10 to 15% of our support is coming from external. If not, we will continue running our projects, programs, departments, and of course the entire government as an NGO, where when there is funding cut, then all projects come to a halt. And at that point, you are unable to even measure what the project benefit has been. So I think generally that's what I want to contribute to that.
Nana Kofi, and so clearly from the conversations we've had so far, we want to see ICT play a lead role in agriculture. There are gaps. Some of the gaps have come up in the conversation that we've had. Can you help us put it up front in our minds? What are the gaps? If you are asked, what are the 3 key gaps that stand between us and fully ICT-oriented agriculture, and what needs to be done about those gaps? So 2 questions in one. What are the gaps? What ought to be done about those gaps?
Thank you. So when we look at the gaps, one is there is a gap between research and industry when it comes to the IT. And that leads to what we have in terms of the solutions and how we are using the solutions to meet our needs. That connection is not there. So those who have the solutions are sitting somewhere with their solutions, and those who need it also do not know that these solutions are there. So there's a need for somebody to bring these people together. And I believe this forum is one of such opportunities where the people who have the solution are brought together and then connected to the people who are the potential users of these solutions. So that is key. And I believe that this workshop should be one of such that we'll be having to ensure that we propagate the message on this Agritech and the available technologies so that the farmers and the other people within the ecosystem get to know of them and start using it. Now, another gap also has to do with the cost of data services in the country. And all the solutions here, they are all running on data in one way or the other. And so if we want ICT in agriculture to flourish, then within the policy and its extension in terms of legislation and regulation, we have to get a system that is able to subsidize some of these services for the agriculture sector. So that if I'm a farmer and I'm connecting to a service, the system is able to detect my IPs and my MAC address and then give me a certain subsidy on the service. This means that NCA has to come into the picture in terms of regulating the telcos and how they can provide some of these services to the agriculture sector. GIFEC also is a major player here because they are the mandated organization to provide some of these free services to the less privileged people in our community. So that is also a major issue. Then we have the policy aspect, which also needs to be put in place to ensure that it provides direction as to how we should go about the whole thing and help us to achieve something. Now, everybody is doing something in their own corner. How do we then formalize some of the processes? How do we create a standardized template for generating reports and so that it becomes easy for everybody who gets a report to interpret it? Not that I'm collecting data using this template, this person is also collecting data using this template, and it becomes difficult for you to then interpret the two. So in the policies, we have this standard and interoperability component there that is intended to ensure that these things are streamlined and formalized so that whatever we are doing, we do it in unison. Then comes to the work for the capacity, the digital literacy of the people is also a major issue. And this cuts across every aspect of the economy. As we are talking about digitization of Ghana, we will not be successful if the people are digitally literate. That is the fact. No matter how sophisticated digital
Can you repeat that? We will not be successful if
the people are digitally illiterate. Yes. And so you have a digital system, let's say, to provide a service for the people. And the people who have to use the service do not know how to use the service. And to the extent that some of them are even technophobias. And so even to approach the system, I think, let me use this, some time ago on PCF, they used to play somebody who said that he's going to look for that computer who has posted a son to somewhere. Now, if that is true, beat the computer. If that is true, that means that person's perception of computer is something, you think that is a being somewhere, a human being somewhere doing that. We need to diffuse all these kind of perceptions and then build up that literacy. That way, people will begin to appreciate. And also, elsewhere, there are subsidies on every service you do online. If you move in to do physical transaction, it costs you more. But when you do it online, you get some rebate. If some of these things are introduced, it will boost the sector in terms of using IT. People will begin to even ask their friends to teach them how to use it and that. And as we begin to do that, we'll build a mass of digital literate people who will then make it easy for us to adopt these IT. We are not there. Across the country, we are doing something, but we are not there. If we take 5 people and you ask them about online, let me just use the passport this service. How many of them are doing this? Most of them will tell you that, oh, they just pay to somebody because they do not have the digital boldness to go online and go through the process and fill the form and submit and wait and have the belief that they will get their passport. If these things are not put in place, it creates a problem. And these are some of the gaps that I think we are trying to address within the strategy.
Thank you, Nana. I will give each of you a minute each, starting from Francis. Francis, how does success look like for you when it comes to ICT in agriculture? Can you paint for us a picture of success and tell us how we get there?
Yes, I see success as not waking up in the morning, dressing without covering yourself entirely, then spraying your farm with harmful chemicals, and using the container in which you poured the chemical from to drink water. I see success as using drones in future to spray our fields with less effort from the farmers. I see success as cropping the field with less effort without using cutlass and hoes as we are doing now.
And how do we get there?
We can get there when we start sensitizing our farmers with these simple but efficient tools that we are coming up with. We can get there when we bridge practice with theory, like the agri colleges. It is about time they appreciate the agriculture that we are doing so that they embrace it whilst in school, and when they come out, they will be bold and come out as entrepreneurs doing their own work and not fighting for government employment.
Thank you, Francis. Bernard, what is success? How do we get there?
Thank you. I see success as something that starts at the mind level. That in our thinking, in our conceptualization, in the implementation, we need to be thinking very carefully about how the use of digital tools can enhance the work that we have to do. So instead of thinking about traveling or going to the farm or traveling to different places, at the mind level, we need to begin to think, what else can help me to do the same thing without going there? I think when we begin to think that way, we will identify the various tools and channels that are available and begin to use them, both at the government level, the implementers level, and the farmers also. I see success in the form of farmers now waking up and thinking, how can I do the same thing I've been doing in a different way, taking advantage of technology? Thank you.
Michael, the government.
Okay, so I see success as an infinite ladder. However, to be able to measure it, we will be able to measure it by the number of obstacles we have overcome while trying to get to that infinity. So, from the research perspective, success will be that point where at the beginning of every year, there is a research agenda which has been decided as a nation, and all researchers working towards that agenda, and industry identifying that researchers are working for them. So they're tapping into the research output and converting them to impact society. Then I would say we are succeeding.
Thank you. Nalema.
I see success as a country knowing who is producing what and where and what their capacity is. So we'll be able to have targeted support to people who are actually producing below their capacity. I see success as a farmer producing not just to feed the household for the next 1 to 2 months, but a farmer who sees agriculture as a business so he can produce enough, sell enough, such that it reaches me in the city that I can also buy to feed. If not, if they produce just to feed their household, and in the next 2 months, they are also in the market to buy, to feed themselves, I might end up eating my computer.
All right, Nana.
Great. So I see success as when we have a mass of our young people, the youth, moving into agriculture because they now see a new wave. They now see that they can use IT. With a click on their tablet, they can manage a farm without going to date themselves and all that. When that kind of attraction comes in, then I will say that, yes, we are getting somewhere. When I see that graduates have intentional objective of going into agriculture because he knows that he's just going to set up his drones, going to sit somewhere under a tree and just manipulate things, and the farm will just be active for him. When that kind of attraction comes in, then we are going to get the boom because it is the youth who are going to really push the agenda of ICT in agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, I think I would allow a few questions from the audience. If you have a question, raise your hand. Please make your questions straight to the point. Yeah, there are some 2 hands here. Yep. Let's start with the lady.
Thank you very much, Gerhard. I also want to thank the panelists for all the illumination I'm getting. This is maybe a question to the Ministry of Agric. I have worked on the MAT program for like 3 years, and I was listening to the panelists, and I was also conferring with some of the MOFA colleagues. And so I asked the question about the last census, whether it asked questions about use of ICTs. I must confess, I have not read the report. They said yes. But then I look at the MAG reports that come to me that I review, the periodic reports, so quarterly reports, annual reports. And the M&E division, is it here? I don't see any section on use of ICTs in the annual reports and the quarterly reports. And this is opening my eyes to the fact that if we want our farmers to begin to use it, then that means that we should have information in there which is telling us how ICT responsive or literate our farmers are and how they're applying it, so that we target our interventions in such a way that, like that our learning from our panelists, we are looking for the problems and we are applying the right solutions and we are learning lessons from them going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was more of a comment.
Yes, it is.
Good. The gentleman in blue.
Thank you very much. I think we're starting on a very good note, but I want to make the following observations that I've realized. First of all, I would like to quote from the World Bank FAO report, which states clearly that over 75% of African farmers still uses rudimentary technologies, and that if they adopt technology, irrigation, and innovation, they'll be making $1 trillion by 2030. 9 years, 2030. Yesterday, we launched the policy. I was expecting to see a very strong linkages between youth, agriculture, and ICT. 2017, at an FAO regional meeting, we made it clear that if the youth, ICT, and telecommunication will be missing in our areas of deliberation, all the data, the projections we are pushing to achieve vision, whatever sustainable development goals and all that, will all not be attained. We talk about ICT today, and